I'm more than a rare exception, you can't compare him. I'm fly as Tuskegee Airman. My patience is as thin as her pins. You find a sucker cat that's talking smack and I'll just dare him. Come at me sideways attacking, I'm pushing back.
Raw on Netflix was not my cup of tea. It wasn't a big deal to me. I didn't really like it. But there's certain things, and look, I tore the show apart for an hour, man. I really don't need to justify that I'm not a super mark for WWE. But some people, I think that their criticisms are unfair, you know? And I've seen some criticisms that I think they're just downright dumb. You know, there's just some that are just downright dumb. And so we're going to talk about some downright dumb comments that had been made about the Raw Netflix show since it aired. So we're not going to go around the horn, though, because mostly we got Voices of Wrestling, Wrestle Purists, and one guy who wrote a book. So we're going to start with Wrestle Purists. I'm not going to use the guy's names. I think he likes a lot of attention. He's the kind of guy who might start a space just to argue with people about these things. But his comment is the one that made the video actually something that I wanted to do. He tweets out, "I resent a lot about how yesterday played out. Every bit of clearly lame news was being rolled out to accounts quoting it. Man, tonight's gonna be like a PLE. Hashtag Monday Night Raw. It felt like an hollow, NPC-ridden media quote hype circus with the fan base doing backflips for every bit of mild PR. Celebrities being paid to tweet about the show in advance, justified pessimism being shut down throughout the day, and then the show comes and it's an empty chip bag where every last one of my concerns were justified. 3 hours of pure, undistilled capitalism. Fans cheering for being overcharged on seats, and the promotion taking a never-ending, decadent victory lap about how much money they're making. It was a Nick Khan press event for sponsors and shareholders with 4 matches, interrupting at points. The supporting cast of characters that helped bring WWE to this point reduced to being Smile and Waivers. Rock detonating his existing stories because he has no clue when he's going to wrestle again. None of the dynamic angles. No existing stories advanced. Today, blue checks are asking you neutral horseshit. Like, what do you rate the Netflix premiere out of 10? And thoughts on Hulk Hogan being booed. Because most of them are spineless, unpaid PR agents that are too terrified to give takes. I guess when they all came down to it, the show did feel like a WWE PLE, lacking in substance, missing action from a lot of the wrestlers that really helped make the TV what it is, and a lot of the time devoted to self-congratulation and product placement. Just very, very venomous. And I don't even necessarily disagree with it completely. Basically, he's just saying there was too many commercials, not enough matches, and then you didn't focus on a lot of the talent. I agree with that generally. But when you say 3 hours of pure undistilled capitalism, I have to... What do you think capitalism is? It's people are excited in the build. They're excited to be there, man. You know, I'm sorry that you're not as excited as the people who are in the building, but the people in the building are excited. All right? Fans cheering for being overcharged on seats. They're not cheering because they're overcharged on seats. They're cheering because they're a part of history. All right? The first Raw on Netflix. They got to be there live and in person. You know, that's what they were excited about. Just like when people are excited to go to WrestleMania. That something's going to happen and you're going to be there in person to see it. You're never going to be excited about a $400 seat. That's never going to happen. And I've seen so many people. I've seen John Alba, he was a wrestling podcaster and journalist for a while. The guy changed his jobs like a Jamaican. And then all of a sudden, he was also talking about this. They're making so much money because they're overcharging people on seats. Like, why do you care? If you're not going, you're not paying the money. Why do you care how much the seats cost? You couldn't complain to me about how much your seat costs because I ain't going. And I've said this before. I've addressed this situation before. That all sports, have become too expensive. The average Joe cannot go to the Super Bowl anymore because those seats are $1,200, $3,000 to be up in the nosebleeds. Most average Joes can't afford it. Now, WWE is going to end up the same way. The difference being WWE is likely going to get smacked with the backlash eventually. So it was a problem when the seats were empty and there was nobody in the building. Ha ha ha, you can't sell tickets. Now they can sell tickets and they can upcharge for the tickets. And oh my God, undistilled capitalism. How can you do this? Like, shut up. Shut your ass. That's not a fair critique. Complaining about too many commercials, I agree with you on that. You think the pacing is too slow? I agree with you on that too. But I don't agree with you when you say it was a Nick Khan press event for sponsors and shareholders with 4 matches interrupting at points. Because you're complaining about the number of matches, which I think is quite frankly lame. I think that if you can get a show that people are happy with and excited by, and the only thing you can come out of it is how many matches were on the show, then you had a good night. Because I can tell you this, I don't care how many matches it is, if the matches are fun and the matches are, good. Okay, 5 matches, 8 matches, it doesn't matter. I don't need to have 12 match card. I really don't. Because I'm pretty sure there's not 24 people on the roster I want to see in one night. not that often, all right? But when you say that it's a press event for sponsors and shareholders, they all are press events for sponsors and shareholders. You think that the NFL doesn't bring sponsors to the shows? You think the NBA doesn't? You think UFC doesn't? You think boxing promotions don't have press spots for sponsors and the people who are hosting the event, if it's like Netflix or Triller or whatever? You think they aren't there? Do you not understand that this is a business? I get it. Most of these people they're into wrestling because they like watching men in tights. But ultimately, this is a business, bruh. It's a business. Business decision is, hey, we're going to show the people who just gave us $5 billion that their money is well spent. That we packed this building. That the people are excited to be here. That they like the effects. They like the look of the show. The video packages. The entrances. The stars. Everybody's over. They're happy all night because they get to see John Cena and Rhea Ripley and all of them. That works wonders in the business world. If you had a great restaurant and you wanted people to invest in your restaurant, you would invite them to the restaurant. So why is it that it's a problem if WWE invites their sponsors and the people they're in business with to the shows? Why wouldn't the people who are investing in the product, why wouldn't they want to be there? Wouldn't it be problematic if they weren't there? You coughed up $5 billion and then didn't go check on your investment? That would be stupid. If you were a businessman, that would be dumb. This is launch day. I don't expect them to show up to every Monday Night Raw. I don't expect them to show up every week. But they're going to show up on launch day because they want to see, hey, did we make the right decision? And the answer was yes, clearly. And everybody who's sitting around waiting for the numbers. Like, Netflix doesn't really release numbers. At least last I checked, they don't. You just have to look at the rankings and see where the show ranks for the week or the month or whatever. So there's going to be arguments about that shortly. Anyway, the next one we got here is a tweet thread. Another one of these wrestling should be wrestling and nothing else guys. He says, quote, wrestling is still stuck in its seeking external validation phase, desperate to be considered among the more accepted art forms. So instead of being confidently and proudly itself, it feels the need to constantly deconstruct itself to seem self-aware and thoughtful. So instead of opening a show with a statement of intent about the characters and stories you're telling, you open it with a defensive justification of your medium as an art form. It is art. The more you feel the need to convince people, the more you undermine the art of it. The constant need to wink is one of my least favorite things about the last 25 years of wrestling. The insistence to let people know that you're in on the joke for fear they will look down on wrestling if you don't. Be wrestling. Be it proudly. This is a very odd set of comments here because the WWE Netflix Raw started with a short history of what professional wrestling is, and carnivals and storytelling, baby faces and heels. I'm not thrilled about the script idea. I'm not thrilled about them using terms babyface and heel. Not thrilled about any of that stuff. But they never shied away from it being a wrestling show. They said that they're storytellers and they're going to tell a story. And this is what they do. And it is what they do. So how are they running away from it? That's my question. Now, when I look at all of these people who are talking about this comment, everybody's like, well, no, it's just a WWE thing. They're scared of being wrestling. It's like you people are the most pathetic, sensitive people. Like, you guys spend most of your time watching mud duck pro wrestling from nowhere, and then the rest of your time is watching goddamn title match shoot interviews, and you have the audacity to be like, you're supposed to protect kayfabe. Get the fuck out of here. Okay, beat it. Nobody's taking you seriously. All right. Here's the simple thing. WWE is sports entertainment. They don't run away from that. It is what it is. They have let people in on the joke. Again, 40 years ago. It's not a secret. So everybody who's like, well, that's not what AEW does. That's not what New Japan does. It's like, what are you talking about? Okay. Doesn't the Young Bucks run around talk about how they're killing the business? When they're 92 pounds and they're throwing around 400-pound guys, the response to the fans is, this shit is fake anyway. When Will Ospreay survives getting machine gunned, it's fake anyway. What? Well, it doesn't matter. He takes a tombstone power driver from the roof of the building, something that fucking killed Owen Hart. All of a sudden, he kicks out at one. Well, who cares? It's fake anyway. And now you're like, WWE should just be proudly wrestling. What the fuck are you talking about? Your defense of how terrible your product is that you really like is that it's fake anyway, so why do you care? Oh, yeah, I should be able to stab a guy with a hypodermic needle. It's fake anyway. Yeah, we should be drinking each other's blood. I mean, they got tested. It's fake anyway. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Where's all these diatribes when AEW does something that is unequivocally fucking stupid? You don't get none of this intellectualism. Everybody just claps like seals, barks, and consumes next fish. Somebody tosses you the fish, you just open it up, and take it right in your mouth. How many matches have I watched that look nothing like a real fight? That look nothing like a traditional pro wrestling match. It looks like nothing Stan Hansen would have gotten involved with. Or everybody runs around how much they love Terry Funk. You think Terry Funk would have loved to have worked with the Young Bucks? You think he would have worked with the Young Bucks all these years? These guys who pump fake a kick from 6 feet away? Oh, get the fuck out of here. Get real. Okay? Those guys who wanted wrestling to look real Those guys are not fans of the Young Bucks. I mean, consistently, the people who have voted against the Young Bucks in the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame have been former wrestlers. The people who want this shit to look real are not interested in the product that you think is unequivocally pro wrestling. Because it's not. It's not. It's sports entertainment. And of course, this guy is a huge fan of a wrestling match where a guy bled from a power bomb. But it's supposed to be unequivocally. Get fucked. Anyway, I do want to tackle his position that wrestling is still seeking external validation. Because every media entity is seeking external validation. And that external validation comes from money and influence. They want more money. They want more influence. They want bigger platforms. They want to be able to pay more talent and then pay the talent more. This stuff doesn't come out of nowhere. Yes, they want external influence. Just like Disney does. Just like Facebook. Just like Twitter. Just like every politician. Everybody's looking for external validation. It's not anything special. Marvel is too. When they make movies, they're trying to make movies not just for superhero fans, but for everybody. Which is why sometimes the tone and the tenor of these movies are different than the comics, or it might be different from, traditionally what people would think. Because they want other people to invest in their product. And if they didn't do that, then some of the movies that ended up being successful for Marvel would not have been successful at all. If they'd have been completely faithful to Guardians of the Galaxy, that movie would have bombed. Who the fuck reads Guardians of the Galaxy comics? Very few people. So very few people knew who those characters were. Peacemaker, that's a DC thing. That's an obscure ass character. But the TV show worked. Why? Because they modified the character to appeal to a larger audience. Sometimes you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that with Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, or anything like that. But when it's obscure ass characters, then you do. You do have to modify the characters a bit. So wrestling is the exact same way. No, if your goal is to only operate in the wrestling space, no, you don't need to modify your product. You just be New Japan. Just be Ring of Honor and go out of business. But if you actually want to have huge stadium shows, you actually want to have, multimillionaire talent who can afford to retire at 38 or 40 and not have to work until they're in their 60s, then guess what? They need some outside money. They're going to need people to buy tickets. They're going to need Netflix and Twitter and whoever else to invest in the company. That's not some sign of insecurity. That is business. That's business. That's literally how businesses work. Businesses want more validation. They want to be a part of something. The more they can be a part of your community, the more they can be a part of your life, the better it is for them. It's not a surprise at all. And it shouldn't be to anybody who is smart. Now, this is the one that's quite humorous. Now, up to this point, I had been seeing a lot of people complain about there only being 4 matches on the show. How dare you have a 3-hour show with only 4 matches? Now we got Vince Russo here. Who is going to complain that, okay, you only have 4 matches on... They were too long, though. So here's Vince Russo. If you look at this, it is amazing to me. We had 4 wrestling matches in 3 hours. I mean, if you're a fan of actual wrestling, you're already watching this show. If you're not, and you're tuning in because of all the hype and the hoopla, and you're seeing 4 very long matches over 3 hours, I just don't know if you're racing towards the television next Monday. So, look, I don't think that they did enough to make people want to see the show next week. They didn't feature anybody who's going to be on the show next week. Sheamus wasn't featured. Kaiser wasn't featured. Balor wasn't featured. Damian Priest wasn't featured. None of these people were featured next week. This week for next week's show. So that might be the problem. Not that the matches are too long, but that they didn't bother to tell stories that would leach into next week. They didn't plant seeds here that will, grow or be watered next week. That's a bigger issue. Again, Vince Russo, my goodness. But he's upset because there were 4 very long matches on the show. I don't know what he thinks, but people tune in to see stars and they will hold and sit as long as the star is on screen. Roman Reigns match could have been an hour. If people like Roman Reigns or if people find him interesting, they will sit and watch it. I mean, we've learned this. I don't necessarily like that idea. I don't like matches to be 30 minutes. I death to 30-minute wrestling matches. All right. If I see 30 minutes, it better include entrances. All right. Or it better be Ric Flair or Randy Savage or Shawn Michaels or Kurt Angle or AJ Styles or somebody exceptional. Then I'll watch 30 minutes. I just found it interesting that the certain section of the fan base are complaining that there was only 4 matches. Not how long the matches were, but that there were only 4 of them. While Vince Russo is complaining about the length of the match. Right? I don't even notice the length of the matches, really. I only really note whether the match was good or not. I'm already locked in. I'll get to complain eventually, because once I come out of the match, I'm starting to say, like, hey, you need to wrap this thing up. But if he's right so much, I'm talking about Russo, he's right so much, is that if you like these guys already, then Roman Reigns being out there for 25 minutes or whatever doesn't really affect you. But if you don't know who this guy is and you're not, involved in the story at all, then maybe the match is too long. Maybe there's too much hoopla because a bunch of people ran in and there's a bunch of people you don't know flying around all over the place. All right, that's you putting yourself in this very odd world, though. You didn't follow the product and you just jump right in and like, wait a minute, who is that guy and why is he fighting that guy? And I get it, but at this point, with this launch, you kind of did it to yourself, right? And they have, especially for international, they have the opportunity for you to catch up. They even did a video package to catch people up about why this match was happening, and they did it for at least 3 of the 4 matches that they showed. They have video packages for them. So there's that. But as usual, Vince Russo hates wrestling and doesn't understand why there's wrestling on a wrestling show. And then other parts of the IWC are complaining that there's not enough wrestling on your wrestling show, which is actually the perfect balance between WWE is the IWC is mad because there's not enough wrestling on your show, but Vince Russo is mad because there's too much wrestling on your show. That's how you know you probably got the right amount of wrestling on the show. All right, we're going to close this segment with Voices of Wrestling because, of course, they were going to make an appearance. The title of the article is Raw on Netflix debut, new distribution method, same boring show. Okay. I actually agree with the top premise here. This guy then admits that he hasn't watched WWE Raw since 2016. So, he doesn't know any of the people on the show. Well, he shouldn't, but he works and writes for Voices of Wrestling, so he's probably exaggerating, right? So, he says he's the perfect lapsed fan. He wants to be impressed here. Upset that Triple H starts the show. Says the show starts with a forever shy Paul Levesque doing a masturbatory video package about the history of wrestling, as told by WWE. And of course, he was the first person on the show. I agree. I don't like the idea of Triple H being the first person on the show. I think The Rock should have been first. He said this is his review or thoughts on Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa. Solo Sikoa versus Roman Reigns. There were branded WWE weapon shots. They did mid-match soliloquies, and the Bloodline interfered. The rest of the show was so bad, and I don't understand the appeal of having paid to be live at this event, or even watching it at home. These people paid a ton of money to watch a video board. Nothing happened for long ass periods. This event was just WWE backpatting themselves because of how awesome they are, and commercials being interrupted by pesky, stinking, stupid pro wrestling. There were many celebrities, and they made sure you saw every one of them. I swear I saw more celebrities than pro wrestlers and pro wrestling on this pro wrestling show. It's cool they went to the show and liked to yeet, but Jesus, do we need to see all of them? Well, they were on screen about a grand total of a couple of seconds. I mean, yes, you do need to see all of them. And if AEW has celebrities, they show them too. They show celebrities at football games, basketball games. All of a sudden, celebrities are a problem at a pro wrestling. So these people are just reaching for stuff. Let's go into some more of his critique. He says, there were lots of video packages, backstage interviews. The only segment that got my attention was the possible debut of Pentagon Jr., but that did not happen since apparently nothing cool or interesting was allowed on this show. Maybe that is a weird rule that Netflix gave them since they were probably afraid that Raw would kick too much ass. I agree with this though. Nothing cool or interesting happened on the show. John Cena came out there. He was pretty cool. But other than that, I really wasn't that excited about much on the show. Nothing interesting, nothing that grabbed me and made me want to watch the show next week. He says, the segments between the matches lasted so long that I took out a book and everything, just waiting for the wrestling to start, for something to happen. Interesting. Typically, when I break out the comics, it's usually because there's a match on that I don't want to see. Like, I would pay attention to backstage interviews. I would pay attention to video because they're short. Video packages don't last that long. 2-3 minutes at the most. The Will Ospreay match is guaranteed to be 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to get some good reading in at that point. Because I already know what the fuck he's going to do. He does the same moves in every match. Match is going to be paced and plotted the exact same way every time. Just like Kenny Omega. Just like most of the Young Bucks matches. They're going to be long for no reason. And we might as well just skip the first 10 minutes because nothing's going to happen within those 10 minutes. And to be quite honest, people don't understand that. I've gotten a lot of critiques about, you barely even watched the matches. Like, bro, you can discount the first 10 minutes of any Kenny Omega match or the first 10 minutes of any Will Ospreay match because there's not going to be any pinfalls, submissions, countouts, or anything. Just discount the first 10 minutes. And if it's in Japan, discount the first 15. Once you already see these guys, you know they're going long. This is one of the final paragraphs here. He says, Seth Rollins versus CM Punk was the most 3.5 star affair you could have gotten. There was some light action before a finisher kick out fest. Hey, at least it made sense that they were kicking out of their finishing moves. Not much happened. One okay match, which he said was Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. A bad one, which is Jey Uso and Drew McIntyre. And a decent one, tons of commercials, then tons of commercials inside the show. I'm watching the worst pacing in the world and a show that barely anything happened. That was Raw. Yeah, that was Raw. That's actually a pretty accurate version of Monday Night Raw, actually. I can't even tear you up for that one because, bruh, that's pretty much my definition of what the show was. It did fuck all, but I want more stuff. I don't want more matches, though. We didn't need more matches. We needed angles. We need storyline stuff. We need something that's going to grab people or showcase somebody. You know? We needed Brian Breaker to show up to John Cena as John Cena is talking about winning the Royal Rumble. And we needed him to get in his face. We needed something like that, something that we could, sink our teeth into and be like, oh, that could be interesting. Let's talk about that. Instead, Cena goes out unmolested, rah speech, dun, 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 throws his hat and he goes back. You're like, oh, okay, that was nice, but see you later and see you in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, who knows? We needed something to happen. These guys just want more matches, or just longer matches where guys do impossibly athletic things like super kick each other from the top of the building or some silly shit like that. Anyway, he says, I understand that modern WWE is not for me. As a former watcher of their product who only watches the big events, I honestly tried their weekly show, and it is still the most boring and nothing show in modern pro wrestling. I honestly don't know how someone who does not watch pro wrestling or is a former fan watched this show, since it was easily available on Netflix and wants more of it. Outside of Hogan getting booed, nothing exciting happened. 4 matches in 3 hours is out of this world insane. Again, why do people pay for tickets? People pay for the experience. There's a certain level of you had to be there. I talked about this earlier. People wanted to be in the building for the first Netflix Raw, just like they want to be in the building for WrestleMania. Even if they don't really like the card, they want to be in the building because there's something magical about it. The anything can happen nature of it. That's what they want, They want to see this. They want to see Roman Reigns and John Cena and The Rock, and some of them wanted to see Hulk Hogan. Not many, but some of them. They want to see CM Punk fight Seth Rollins. They want to see CM Punk and Seth Rollins. They want to hear the promos. They want to see the angles. All of this stuff that you guys claim, well, there's nothing happening. I agree there's nothing happening. But they didn't buy the ticket knowing that nothing was going to happen. Okay? They bought a ticket because they expected more than what the show promised. But ultimately, the show promised exactly what they gave. Hey, here's this big match, Seth Rollins versus CM Punk. They delivered that. And they sold that building out. 17,000 people in the building. And as much as this guy wants to say it was a 3.5 star affair, look, who cares about the Meltzer scale, the cage match scale, or anything like that? Did the people in the building like it? Yes. I did not hear any negativity about that match. The only thing negative I might have heard is CM Punk is slow, which we all knew because he's older. So when you ask the question, why do people buy tickets? Because there's a grandeur to the WWE product. Like I said, Disney movies do better than most other animated films. Even if the movie ends up not being that good, because Disney has a reputation for making very good animated movies. WWE has a history of having great events. Even if the matches aren't great, even if the storylines aren't the best, they typically have a very strong audience built off of their reputation and the magic and the anything can happen nature of it. The grandeur and the splendor of WWE. And people are still attracted to it. 40 years later, there's nothing that these guys are going to be able to do that's going to convince wrestle purists or voices of wrestling or what culture or cultaholic or anybody else that WWE is a superior product to AEW or New Japan. There's nothing they're going to be able to do outside of changing their product to be more like New Japan, which is going to kill the WWE audience. And hell, it's killing the New Japan audience. I just saw that those guys are disappointed at the Wrestle Kingdom ticket sales. And then even more disappointed at the Wrestle Dynasty ticket sales. And we're talking about 24,000 and 16,000 or whatever. But the dome wasn't full. WWE is talking about they did 17,000, broke gate records. And the people walked out of the building happy. The people who are complaining are the people who are online. The people who hate the show anyway. The people who complain about Raw every week anyway. People like me. complain about Raw every week anyway. So who gives a fuck what we think? I'm one of the smart ones who are saying WWE don't give a fuck what I think, and they probably shouldn't. I'm not the target audience. The target audience are younger people, lapsed fans, and celebrities. That's what they want. That's what they got. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later.
No one does it better.